we're gonna talk about MLB. Tyler, we're halfway through the season. My new favorite team's halfway through their season. I know you have a lot of headlines you want to talk about, kind of an outlook for the rest of the season. I'll let you take it away.
Yeah. So last week, MLB teams passed the halfway point of the 60-game season. Of course, the Cardinals and Marlins a little bit behind, but they will hopefully catch up. We're pretty close to it. So first thing I want to do is just quickly go over kind of the postseason picture right now, what teams are in it as we speak here on Tuesday. In the American League, we got Tampa Bay in first place, one game ahead of the Yankees. In the AL Central, this is a really, really tight race between three teams. You got Minnesota is on top, and then Cleveland and Chicago, after the no-hitter from Lucas Giolito today, are tied for second place, only a game and a half back. In the AL West, Oakland is looking really good right now with a 20-10 record. They are 3.5 games ahead of Houston in the AL West. So those are the teams in the American League. And the wild card race, you got Toronto 14-14 and Baltimore right behind them at 14-15. Of course, with that AL Central, one of those teams that aren't going to make that second spot will most likely make that wild card spot. So it's kind of a battle between Toronto and Baltimore there for the second wild card spot. And then moving on to the National League in the East, the Braves have a 1-game lead over the Miami Marlins, who are still holding on to that second spot. And then in the NL Central, the Cubs are 2.5 games ahead of St. Louis. Of course, St. Louis has a lot of games they need to make up, so that can change pretty quickly. In the NL West, the Dodgers are running away with this one despite the Slam Diego Padres, who hit 5 grand slams last week. Who have the second best record or the third best record in the league, but are 4 games behind the Dodgers, who are 22-8. And then for the wild card, 2 more teams from the NL West, the Colorado Rockies and the San Francisco Giants are currently taking on that second wild card spot. So a little bit of surprise there in the wild card for me. Alex, I'm going to ask you about these standings. Are there any teams that you think that are not currently in it that will make it? Any of these teams that fall out? Currently, there are 4 teams in the NL West in the postseason. Do you see that holding up, or give me your thoughts on the postseason picture right now?
Yeah, so starting with the NL, I can see Colorado sticking around. I don't envision San Francisco sticking around. I just don't think they have enough pitching to deal with some of these other teams that are going to come up. Granted, they don't have to play the Dodgers anymore, I believe, after this series that they're currently playing, which has to be helpful. So I think Colorado can stick in there. I think the Padres are for sure going to end up in that second spot in the NL West. If I had to pick, I'm kind of feeling the Mets. I don't really have a reason other than Jacob deGrom. He could probably lead that team to a wild card spot. In the Central, I picked the Cardinals to win. I do think they're going to catch the Cubs. I think their pitching depth is not good enough. It's not going to hang up. We talked about it in that first one, Tyler. Miami, they're still in it. Dude, I kind of have a feeling they might be able to squeak it in. That NL East is weird as shit. But really, in the NL, anyone could make it into those 2 wild card spots except for Pittsburgh. All 14 teams are realistically still in it. I think Cincinnati has been a huge disappointment because I'm pretty sure you picked them to make the playoffs earlier, so you're an idiot.
I did, yes.
And then moving over to the AL, I think it's done, to be completely honest. I think the Oakland, who I would like to point out, I picked to win the AL West, is fucking killing it, so I'm a genius. Minnesota, New York, and Tampa are nasty. And then whichever one of those, that Cleveland or Chicago team doesn't make, one of those top 2 spots in the AL Central, falls to the wild card. Toronto's going to get that other one. I don't believe in Baltimore. There's no team that even has like above a 400 winning percentage other than Baltimore. So they just can't have enough. So also, Angels are terrible. Just got to put that out there.
Yeah. I also want to give myself a little pat on the back. Currently, 5 out of the 6 teams I predicted to win their divisions are currently winning their divisions. The only one I don't got right now is the Yankees in the East, but that's the closest one. So we'll see how the rest of the season pans out. I kind of agree with you, Alex. I think the American League looks pretty accurate. I can see those standings kind of holding up. that AL Central race is going to be very interesting to watch. And then in the NL, I mean, you pretty much got the Braves, Cubs, and Dodgers headlining those divisions. That wild card's gonna be very interesting. It's gonna be, I think, 2 mediocre teams that make it. So we'll see what happens with that. So moving on.
What are you gonna do when the Dodgers lose the World Series again this year, though? Is it just gonna be like another waste of a season, or
they won't? You know, they just they won't.
Okay.
They won't.
Okay.
They just have to not fuck up, which is a big ask, but you know, right now
you should call them and tell them that.
Yeah,
hey, just don't fuck up.
Yeah, just play like you're supposed to. Yeah.
It's that easy.
It really is.
Won the last 5.
Yeah.
Don't fuck up.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you know, deja vu. Dodgers are running away with the division. Got one of the best records in baseball. It's been the same story the last 3 or 4 years. We just gotta lock it in the playoffs. But we'll talk about that when the playoffs come. So moving on to my biggest surprise and biggest disappointment of the season. My biggest surprise are a few rebuilding teams are in the race right now in the Marlins, Orioles, and Giants. Certainly halfway through the season, I didn't think any of these teams would even be in the conversation. Of those 3, I see the Marlins possibly making it, the Orioles and Giants not so much. But it's still pretty cool to see. This is one of those things about this 60-game sprint. There's going to be some surprises. For me, I think the Marlins are the biggest one. James, do you see any of those teams making the postseason? And then what is your biggest surprise of this season so far?
I definitely think they all have a decent – it's baseball. Like, things can happen that you don't think is going to happen. So they definitely have a chance of making the postseason there for all those teams you just mentioned. My biggest surprise also has been my biggest disappointment, and that is the Angels being the second worst team in the league. I mean, none of us – I kind of hoped, but none of us really thought they were going to win the division. But we also didn't think they were going to go 10-22 and be absolutely atrocious, like terrible. They have the 4th highest negative point difference in the league at -34. They're just a bad team, and it sucks.
Yeah, they're having a rough time of it right now. And that's going to swing me to my biggest disappointment, which is the Los Angeles Angels. And I'm also going to say the Cincinnati Reds of the National League. I picked the Cincinnati Reds to win the wild card, and they're 11-16 right now. They have the worst batting average in baseball, which going into it, I said this lineup is stacked and they can rake, and they are shitting the bed. They're hitting 204 as a team right now. Nick Castellanos is the only guy worthy to be in that lineup. Other than that, they just are struggling on the offensive side. I'm still kind of waiting for this team to get hot. I still think that if they can figure out their offense, can make a run for that last wild card. So I'm not giving up hope on my Reds yet. So I think they still have a chance. But as of halfway through, real big mess over there in Cincinnati. And on the American League, Angels, like you mentioned, 10-22. They have the 3rd worst team in baseball right now. Their pitching is just, again, not good right now. But there's a lot of stuff going on, and they just can't seem to, get going. I mean, they've had Mike Trout on their team for the last who knows how long. It seems like forever. 0 playoff wins to show for it. Eric, who's to blame here for the Angels' problems?
who is to blame for the Angels' struggles? Not a person, not a place, but a thing. It's called the stupid fucking coronavirus.
Oh,
you know why?
Oh my God.
Because it's shortened the season in the first place, and it's shortened the season in half. They got a new coach, the new pitching staff. They needed time to get these things into a groove, and that's not going to happen this year for them. Their pitching is not working out the way that it should, but at the same time, Joe Madden, I've seen him kind of pull the trigger early on a lot of the pitchers where other teams would maybe give him a longer chance, longer leash. I think he's trying to test the waters with his pitchers. There's not many that can get the job done right now for them. So I'm going to go half the virus and half the pitching. But
okay.
Another thing is when the pitching goes well for them, which is rare, then the hitting doesn't. It's like it's either one or the other. And then a lot of times it's just neither. So if you don't hit and score runs in baseball, you don't win. And if you're winning in baseball and then you don't pitch the ball and the other team scores a bunch of runs, then you don't win. So
That
they're
is how
not
baseball
winning.
works, yeah.
Hot take.
Yeah.
Hot take.
James, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with Eric, and it's the coaching staff. The reason why they're losing is because of Joe Madden. That guy, like, I haven't liked him since game one. He pulled Andrew Heaney after 60 pitches when he was killing it in game one because he threw one ball and walked one guy. Like, nah, dude. You're not giving the pitchers the confidence they need to throw what they need to throw. Right now, they're all just aiming their pitches because they're scared as shit to miss. And that's his fault. That's on Joe Madden. The pitcher's doing terrible because of him. Last year, they didn't do this bad. Last year, with Brad Osmus, they were 15 and 17 through 32 games, which is not spectacular, but it's better than 10 and 22. This is on Joe Madden. Come on, man. You're better than this.
Yeah, I mean, I personally want to see the Angels do well. I want to see the two teams in LA battle for it, possibly see an LA versus World Series. That'd be awesome. Mike Trout, Mookie Betts in the same postseason.
La La Land.
Yeah, I want the Angels to do well. Not because I like you guys, but just because I want to see good baseball. So moving on, my first half MVP awards in the National League. No contest here. Fernando Tatis Jr. Currently hitting .314, 12 home runs, 29 RBIs at a 1.073 OPS. I mean, this guy's lighting the baseball world on fire. He is an unbelievable talent right now. Traden, I'm going to ask you about him in a second here. But for my American League MVP, 40-year-old DH Nelson Cruz. All right, this guy is at 40 years old. He's hitting .343, 10 home runs, 26 RBIs at a 1.122 OPS. This guy's hitting this well at 40. I can't imagine to see what he's going to do at 50. So, Traden, I wanted to ask you, I know you're a big fan of Tatis. We talked about him last week. Is he the most exciting player in baseball right now? And has he dethroned Mike Trout as the face of baseball?
For COVID, yes. I don't know that you can say that. I mean, Mike Trout has been kind of doing this for so long. I think it's a little early for that. But I will say this year, absolutely. The guy's within 30 games, the guy has been 118 at-bats, 29 runs, 12 home runs, and 29 RBIs, leading the league in those last two stats. We talked about his controversial grand slam. Well, I don't think the team really cared because they went ahead and scored 4 in a row, which has never happened in baseball, and then they scored another one, like you said. Fernando is like hitting and stealing his way to become the MVP for sure. I don't know that it's hands down. I think that there's a heated race between your guys as Mookie Betts and Yastrzemski. Is that how you say that name? He's having a pretty solid season.
Yastrzemski. Nice try.
There you go.
Some of the Giants, everybody. After the Giants.
But
Top 10 asshole.
But sorry, Dodgers fans. I don't think Mookie Betts is gonna get at this point is not your MVP. I just look at it this way. I mean, San Diego hasn't reached the postseason since 2006. They're the third longest drought in the MLB. It almost seems like Tatis is putting everything on his back and just and doing everything, offensively and defensively. I mean, on Sunday he had a crazy ass catch that was like insane, and so he's making all these plays. And he's definitely the most electrifying player. He's the most exciting player. And if they make the playoffs, I mean, in my mind, that is MVP worthy. Now, if they don't make the playoffs, I don't know how you can give them the MVP. I'm kind of your team has to make the MVP type of guy. So Mookie Betts would be your guy. But at this point, he's turning heads and he's making it fun for people like me to watch the game. So that's where I'm like, and by the way, you know, I come from a hockey type of background, so baseball can be a little boring for me at times. So when a player like this comes out and is doing these types of things, it gets me excited. So
for sure. I mean, that's why I would say he's probably the face of baseball, because he's getting guys like you to watch it, you know. And for me, that's the definition of that. But yeah, I agree with you, man. Fernando Tatis. What a fucking player. Slam Diego, baby. I mean, that's an unbelievable story going down there.
It is.
All right. So the few real quick, my biggest storylines to watch moving forward here. We have a couple of guys that are currently hitting above 400. DJ LeMahieu is at 411. He is currently on the IL with a thumb injury, so that might change because he won't have enough at bats, but he might come back and keep swinging it. Also, Charlie Blackmon of the Colorado Rockies is at 405. He was hitting 500 about a week ago, has struggled since, so he's kind of cooling off a little bit. Alex, simple question: do we get a 400 hitter this season?
No. I mean, Charlie Blackmon ran into the buzzsaw that is the Los Angeles Dodgers pitching staff, and he literally dropped 100 points in batting average in a 3-game series. He's done. LeMahieu is not going to, if he comes back with enough plate appearances to qualify for the title, he still won't do it. We've seen time and time again in baseball, thumb injuries will sap any amount of hitting that a baseball player can do. If you can't hold on to the bat with a strong thumb, you're fucked. So no.
Yeah.
Not a chance.
Agreed. Moving on to kind of how COVID-19 has played a role so far in this season, and injury rates is an interesting story to look at. Obviously, the Marlins and Cardinals are the two teams that had the big outbreaks, and their schedule is crazy. I believe the Cardinals have to make up 42 games in 37 days or something crazy like that. So it's going to be a crazy schedule for them as well as the Marlins. Lots of doubleheaders. I don't really see it possible that they're going to play 60 games. It could happen but what happens if they get a rain out in September on a doubleheader? Like, it's going to be interesting. So with those final games going on, if there's a 4-game difference, 5-game difference in standings, that's going to be a very interesting thing for that to play out, because both those teams are currently in a postseason spot. And real quick for injury stat for you guys, through 31 games in 2018, there were 43 pitchers to go on the IL. Last season, 2019, there were 51 through 31 games. Through 31 games so far this season, there have been 98 pitchers on the injury list. So more than double what we've seen. I think a lot of that has to do with kind of the, quote unquote, rushed kind of, summer training back into it. A lot of doubleheaders. So that's interesting to kind of note. There's been a lot of guys that go on the IL, as us in playing fantasy definitely are aware of. Eric, do we see another team outbreak of COVID, and how do you see the schedule playing out for the Cardinals and Marlins?
Yes, we do see another team outbreak.
Who? Call it. Call it.
Dodgers.
Padres.
Oh, shit.
Whoa.
Everything's going well for them, and a classic Padres moment. Everything is going well, and it goes to straight for shit. So it could be them, but just with the no bubble rule, it's been at sides. Clippers are doing really well right now. Anyways, the whole no bubble rule it just kind of makes it difficult. You had the situation with Clevenger and the Indians. They got lucky with that without any outbreaks. That could have been another team right there. As far as the other part of the question, how are they going to make up those games? That is going to be interesting because, like you guys are saying, the Cardinals are doing well. I mean, it seems like if they're going to have to make up those games and the season is over, it sounds like it would be almost like a play-in situation, like maybe a few games, 4 or 5 games of a series for them to play in to see who gets in, them and the Marlins and whoever else. But I think we may see one more team get an outbreak.
All right, well, I'll just have to wait and see if, Eric, you're right on your prediction. So just an update on the Indians drama that we talked about last week. Clevenger today was called up. He's going to start Friday against the Twins. One of the 2 pitchers that violated team protocols with COVID. Plesac is currently still down on the roster, or down on the alternate site. Trayden, if the Indians continue to hold a playoff spot, are they going to call up Plesac?
Well, it sounds to me like Plesac might be on the trading block. I mean, the manager called him and said, or the manager or president called him and said, we don't have an opportunity for you right now. And it's kind of weird because if you look at all of the Twitter on the Indians side, they hate the current pitching staff, at least the lower end guys, and they're just screaming to have these guys back. So I don't know. That's a tough call. He was killing it before he shit the bed and did his stupid thing. So you have to keep that in mind. And here's the thing: I'm not surprised Clevenger's back because he's rotating in tomorrow. Look, guys, if you're in a playoff spot and you have a chance to win the World Series, you got to just do it. I'm sorry, Oliver Perez. He said he was going to opt out if they got brought back in. You have a chance to win a World Series here. They're a contender. I'm sorry. I mean, it is what it is. You hope that now I will say this: Clevenger has a huge responsibility to play, and if he does not play very well, I think that it looks worse. I think that he being in all of this, this mess, I think hopefully it humbled him a little bit and said, okay, you fucked up. You have your meeting with your teammates, you figure it out. Your teammates hopefully will not hold a grudge and say, hey, dude, we need you back, but you better play. And I would say that any other league, any other team in the league would love to have Clevenger on their rotation. I don't care who you are, regardless of his, what he did. So, like, would he be great with the Angels? Yeah, I think that that would help. I don't care what he did. He's a great pitcher. So, yeah, I don't know. Please, Zach is a question mark. I would say that if he's around and they're having these troubles offensively, then pitching is going to have to save them, and he might have to come and save the day.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that Plezak's going to be coming up at some point. I think the Indians are just too good of a team, and they're going to need those guys, especially in the postseason, to be able to play. And you got to play a certain amount of games to be on the postseason roster. I think it's just a matter of time before Plezak gets called up. Alex, did you have you had a question you wanted to ask me?
Yeah, just real quick. It kind of now goes off script or whatever, but as we're talking about the NL and how good the Dodgers are compared to every other team and how open that wild card spots are there any teams that aren't currently in the playoff spots that you as a Dodgers fan are worried about?
In the National League?
Yeah,
I still think that the biggest threat to the Dodgers in the postseason, honestly, it could be the Padres, just the way that they're playing. If they match up in a postseason series, or I'm also going to say the Cubs, just because I think that they have that experience. I think that they are playing very well. They're a little bit older, so if they stay healthy, that's kind of their big thing. A lot of guys are kind of pushing past their prime a little bit. But I think those two teams for me are the teams I don't really want to play in the postseason. With that being said, Dodgers are the clear front runners here.
got it.
All right. That's all I got on MLB.